Hi, I'm Shane with Etrailer.com. Today I'm going to walk through how to install Demco Baseplate with fixed arms on our 2014 Chevy Captiva Sport. The baseplate is going to attach to the chassis of the vehicle, and what it's designed to do is it allows you or gives you a solid attachment point for your tow bar on the back of your motorhome. This is going to allow you to flat tow the vehicle behind the motorhome while you're traveling. It's going to be a steel construction, very durable, very thick welds, nice black powder coat finish on it. Really going to stay looking nice for a long time. One of the downfalls to the Demco baseplate is the installation side. The installation side for this baseplate is not the easiest. There are other baseplates available that are a little bit easier to install. That being said, if you like the looks of this one, it's going to work with a lot of different tow bars out there. So it's not going to limit you to just one tow bar. You can find any of those products, the base plates and the different tow bars, here at Etrailer.com. Here is going to be our connection point for our tow bar. This spot here, this is going to be for your safety cables. If we come over here to the center, this bracket here you see the wiring mounted to, or this wiring bracket mounted to. This bracket is going to come with your base plate. Typically this is going to have two holes in it, and typically it would mount on either side of your base plate. However, you can see with this vehicle, the license plate would cover it, so we actually moved it out here. So that being said, I would recommend getting two long brackets. They're no drill mounting brackets. You can find those here at Etrailer.com. This allows you to extend the bracket or extend your connection point out from your base plate so you can attach your wiring. Now let's go ahead and take our vehicle out, get it hooked up to our RV, and show you what it looks like when it's being used. As you can see here, this is what it's going to look like when we're connected. We have our tow bar connected to our base plate. You can see, as I mentioned, this is going to be your connection point for your base plate. Safety cables, they're going to hook here, and it's going to give us that solid attachment point or solid connection point between our vehicle and our motorhome. Another nice thing about this base plate is when you're not flat towing your vehicle, because these do stick out a little bit, they're going to have nice caps that you can put on to give it a little bit of added look to kind of blend in with the vehicle a little bit more. Now that we've gone through some of the features, let's walk you through how to get it installed. Starter installation, we're going to remove 12 fasteners from this plastic panel underneath our hood. We're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver. You don't need to push on it. All you need to do is just make sure it grips, and you're going to pry out the center. If you push on it too much, you're going to push it back down in there. Just like that. I have one here, here, across the top. We're going to have 4 here. This one, and this one down here in the very center. We'll pull this panel off, and as I mentioned, we're going to have one right down here in the center that's holding the fascia down on the bumper beam. Take a 7mm socket in each wheel well. We're going to have a bolt here and one right up top here. On the bottom side of the vehicle, on both sides of the fascia, we're going to have 2 7mm bolts and 1 10mm bolt we need to remove. We're going to have 1 10mm bolt right here in the center and 2 plastic pushpin fasteners right here. Flathead screwdriver, trim panel tool, right out the center, just like that. We'll pull this panel off and set it aside. Now we can start pulling our fascia off. It's a good idea. It's better if you have an extra set of hands so you can go from either side. If you don't, take your box that your base plate comes in, set the box underneath the fascia so you can start on one side and then set your fascia on it so you don't damage it. We're going to start on the outside and start working our way to the center. Keep in mind, if you have any lights or anything like that, don't just pull the fascia off. You want to make sure you unplug those as you're taking it off so you don't damage the wiring. Just going to pull out from the fender. We'll just pop it off like this. Again, we'll just work our way to the center. We're going to have a wire connection here. Push that gray tab down on both sides. And you're going to have a black tab right there in the center. Push that, and you're going to pull up on the plug. We'll just work our way over to the other side. Once you have all your plugs removed, you can set your fascia aside somewhere safe so it doesn't get damaged. Next, we need to take a 10mm socket and we're going to remove our radiator coil. We're going to have a 10mm bolt here. This top one here, or the center one. And then over here on the passenger side frame rail, where your two hoses come in, there's a pushman fastener right back here. We need to pop that off. Just like that. Next thing we need to do is we're going to start the process of removing our bumper beam. We're going to have two bolts up here that attach our headlights to the beam. We need to remove all the fasteners that are holding the wiring onto the beam. We're going to have 4 bolts here that hold the beam onto the frame rail. We're going to have a fastener right here on the bottom where the wiring comes down. We'll start with the top two here. This is going to be a 10mm socket. Your fasteners, you can remove the same way you did the other ones, just a trim panel tool or a flathead screwdriver. This bottom one you want to be careful with. This is your air temperature sensor, so you want to make sure you don't break that clip. We're just going to kind of pull it to the side and push these little tabs in. Just like that. Take a 12mm socket. We're going to remove the 4 bolts on each side. And then we'll have one more 10mm head bolt right here. We'll go ahead and start removing our bumper beam. We're going to kind of pull up on our lights. They have a little tab there that holds it into place. Again, make sure you don't just pull this off in case you missed any wiring or anything like that that's still connected to it. We're just going to slide it back slowly and slide our radiator hoses out just like that. And then we'll set this aside. On our passenger side, take a 10mm socket. We're going to have 2 bolts. We're going to be removing our air baffle. One here and one here. And then we'll set that aside. On our driver's side, we need to remove our windshield washer reservoir. These hoses that are coming up, they're going to connect right here at the top. Mark one of them where you're disconnecting it so you know which one is going to which hose because these are little pumps and you want to make sure they're going to the correct one. What we're going to do is we're going to pull it apart. You can take a little screw or bolt, put it inside the hose so it doesn't leak when you take it off. Then we're going to have a couple of bolts to remove from here. We'll have one right here. We'll have one right down on the bottom. And then we'll have one right back here. You need to pull your plugs off the top of the vacuums. If it's taped right here, there's a little tab inside there and it's going to face in. Push that tab and pull these off. And we'll slide this off. You're going to have to watch the neck because it goes up into the engine compartment. We'll have a fastener right here on the back side. And it's just a push-pin fastener. And then we'll set our tank aside. Then we'll take a trim panel tool. We're going to remove the fastener that's holding the wire loom onto this frame extension. This is going to be on the driver's side. And then over on our passenger side, we're going to remove this fastener here. So you're going to use a Phillips head screwdriver and it's going to come out the same way that your top ones did. Next we'll take a 12mm socket. We're going to remove frame extension from each side. We're going to have 4 bolts, 2 at the top and 2 along the bottom. We'll remove both of them and set them aside. Driver's side I found had a little tack weld right here. I'm not sure why they did that. The other side wasn't like that. If it does, just pop it off. Pop the extension off. Next, what we're going to do is you're going to take your frame bracket. It's going to be marked rear with a sticker. One side is going to have 2 holes, and the short flap is going to be shorter. It's not going to have holes in it. You're going to put it up against the back side of your frame rail. 2 holes are going to be on the side, and you want to measure on this side 3/4 of an inch down. Passenger side is going to be 1.5 inches. You just want to make sure you're following your directions on all your measurements. You can see I got a little black mark there. I clamped it like this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a drill bit and I'm going to drill the center out of each one of those and then take it up to 3/8. Before I start drilling holes on the other side, I want to show you what the end result is going to look like. This is our rear bracket. You can see how I have this one marked, drilled through both my frame extension here. We have a front bracket that's going to go on and also going to have holes drilled in it. I just wanted to show you what it's going to look like, even though we're going to take you step by step and show you how to get it installed. The best way to do this is start with a pilot bit, do a small hole, and then step it up every couple bits up to a 3/8. 1, it's going to save your arms. 2, it's going to save your drill bits. We'll take a 3/8 bolt. You're going to make sure you're using the blue Loctite that comes in your kit. We're going to run it through each of the holes in the bracket that we just drilled. Then we're going to put on a lock washer and a nut. Then with a 14mm socket, we're going to tighten and torque the hardware to the specifications in the instructions. You want to make sure, if at all possible, you torque it from the nut side, not the bolt head side, so that it's accurate. Should have enough room in here with a small torque wrench to get it inside there, and a short bit. And you're going to measure from this top hole down 2 3/4 inches. You're going to go in 7/8 of an inch and mark it. From there, you're going to go down to 5 3/4 from this top hole down to 5 3/4, again in 7/8 and mark it. We're going to drill out 2 holes, only we're going to go through this plate and then the plate we just installed, or the bracket we just installed. We're going to take it from our pilot hole all the way up to 3/8. Next, we're going to temporarily reinstall our extension, our frame extension. And then right back here, they're not going to tell you this in the instructions, but this fastener right down here, go ahead and remove it. What we're going to do is we're actually going to drill from back here through instead of tapping it and then pulling this off and re-drilling it. This is going to make it a little bit easier to get our holes to line up better, because I had a little bit of a problem on the other side. Their measurements are a little bit off. We're going to see if we can't get this one to line up any better. Now all I'm doing is I'm using my drill bit to mark the holes on the extension, and then I'll pull it back off and drill them out all the way. Once you get the holes opened up enough to get these bolts through, then what you're going to do is install the plate. Don't tighten it down, and we're going to mark these holes and drill them out. Now we're going to take the whole thing off, including this front bracket, and we're going to mount the front bracket onto our extension. You'll notice there's an overlap here. We're going to take a flat washer that comes in the kit. We're going to slide it in the bottom hole only. We'll run our 3/8 bolt through. On the inside, we're going to put a lock washer and a nut. Now before putting the nut on, you want to make sure you're using Loctite. Again, you want to use this on all the hardware that we're installing for the base plate. Then we're going to tighten and torque the hardware to the specifications and the instructions. For our bolts that are going through this bracket, through this plate, and then through this bracket, they're going to be 3/8 bolts, but they're going to have the collar on them. Again, make sure you're installing Loctite. And then we can reinstall our frame extension. Once you have these tightened and torqued down, you can repeat the process for the other side of the vehicle. Next, we're going to lift our base plate up into place. We're going to temporarily install it using the existing weld nuts. What I did is I put 2 on each end just to hold my base plate up. And then what we're going to do is this very bottom hole, we're going to drill it out to the same size we did the rest of our hardware. Before we take these off, we're going to install the hardware here. Then we'll remove these and put our bumper beam back in place. We're going to tighten our bolts down, and then we're going to torque them to the specifications and the instructions. These are actually going to be a 13mm socket for the nut side. Next, we can reinstall our airbox and our windshield washer reservoir. Once you have your bumper beam put back in place, your hardware you're going to be putting in, you're going to have 8 bolts. They're going to be the same length, same size. You're going to put on a lock washer and then a flat washer. Install them again into the existing weld nuts that are already going through the base plate into the frame, and then you're going to tighten and torque them to the specification and the instructions. Once you get your bumper beam put back in place, you're going to have to trim your fascia. Just follow the instructions for the trimming. It's very simple. You'll notice a couple extra brackets here. These do not come in the kit. These are long brackets, and what I did with these is this is the bracket that comes with the base plate. This is for mounting your wiring, and typically it's going to mount on one side or the other. With this vehicle, the license plate sits right here on the bumper fascia, and it actually covers this, so mounting it here would not work. So what I did is use 2 brackets, drilled a hole in the back, just ran a bolt through it through the slip in the bumper beam. Drill a couple extra holes here. Once I get the fascia put back in place, that's going to sit just like that. And then with our braking system, we can mount our breakaway switch right here on this side. That way everything is together. Once you get your fascia cut out, it's a good idea, before you put your fascia back in, to add any additional items you may be needing, like your wiring and your braking system. It's a lot easier to run all of your wires where they need to go while your fascia is off. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. That's going to do it for a look at installation on the Demco Baseplate on your 2014 Chevrolet Captiva Sport.